The army is a weird and wonderful place, filled with jargon, bizarre traditions, and cultural norms that make little sense to an outsider. Some of these are well publicised or common knowledge to the layperson, while others are more obscure and exist only within select units.
Boom.
Jesus, Bung, I told you there was bloody shot in the unit.
Like any large organisation comprised of men and women recruited at a young age to vanquish enemies of the state, it's also host to its fair share of controversies and scandals. This iceberg list aims to draw attention to some of these quirky practices, bizarre phrases, and tragic tales to provide a behind-the-scenes glimpse into the stranger side of the Australian Army.
Got your ass.
Without any further ado, let's get stuck into it. Level 1. Digger, a term referring to an Australian soldier. While it gained prominence during World War I on the Western Front, many soldiers in the Second Boer War of 1899 were former miners, earning a reputation as diggers for their ability to hastily construct defences. The term is closely associated with the Anzac legend and the concept of egalitarian mateship. Pump jets. During a 2017 exchange between Senator Pauline Hanson and Rear Admiral Greg Samet in Senate estimates, a rather tense debate occurred regarding the capabilities of Australian submarines. In an attempt to press the Admiral on technical data, Pauline Hanson demonstrated a somewhat reductive, albeit amusing take on the capabilities of submarine propulsion and submerged endurance. Her line of questioning led to this iconic yet icy riposte from Admiral Samet.
Pump jets into a sub. Now, is it true that pump jet submarines can only stay underwater for 20 minutes?
No, Senator. I do not know what you're referring to about pump jet submarines remaining underwater for 20 minutes. Can I just be clear again? A pump jet is a form of propeller. It has no bearing on how deep a submarine can go, how long it can stay underwater. They are matters that pertain to the platform design of the submarine.
Emu bob, a process of organising a group of diggers into an extended line and slowly and methodically visually searching a specified area. This practice of slowly walking while bending over to pick up objects resembles an emu bending to eat, hence the name. This is commonly conducted to ensure an area is sanitised of rubbish on completion of an activity, or in some very unfun circumstances, when an expensive or sensitive piece of equipment has been lost. In the US, this is called a police call, and this differing terminology often leads to bewilderment on both sides during joint US and Australian training evolutions. Brass party. At the completion of any range activity, the expended ammunition casings, or brass, need to be collected and placed into sandbags. On a flat or permanent range, this is a simple enough feat. However, during field firing, this is substantially less pleasant. The brass party is the unlucky assortment of diggers selected to complete this task. Often, a brass party will also involve an emu bob. Stabbed. The army has lots of horrible and never-ending tasks. Some short and menial, others long and arduous. Someone tragically has to conduct said tasks. To stab, be stabbed, or receive a stabbing refers to the delegation of such unpleasant tasks, usually by the chain of command. This can vary in scale and severity, and may range from requiring one digger to physically move an object, or a whole section being allocated to a multi-week jungle training activity. Dog and pony, a term that describes the task of setting up a display intended to show off equipment or capabilities. Dog and pony shows may be conducted for army open days in the spirit of recruitment or family fun, or may be performed for visiting politicians or dignitaries. Dog and pony shows are also more often than not a stabbing. Linger, an extremely derogatory term referring to one who fakes illness or injury. The term is derived from the word malingerer, and often involves someone grossly falsifying or exaggerating what ails them. This is often to achieve favourable conditions, to shirk away from routine work such as guard duty, or to avoid a stabbing. A common and much maligned class of linger is one who avoids a field exercise due to an alleged crippling musculoskeletal injury, however, is then immediately spotted in the gym doing 5x5 heavy sets of deadlifts. Red tabs. During Army recruit training, one's progress through the phases is measured by the coloured tabs displayed on the uniform. This colour code system indicates the progression for recruit training and serves to visually distinguish the extremely new from the not-so-new recruits. As red tabs is the first and therefore most junior colour, it is sometimes used as a barb to indicate someone's lack of experience. Back squatted. During both recruit and initial employment training, the scheduling sees platoons on a staggered offset program. Recruits who fail key assessments or become injured may be sent to a platoon at an earlier stage of training than their own. This sees them having to redo training blocks they have already done and retest key assessments if necessary. While this is usually only a week or two, to the recruit mind who wants nothing more than to finish and leave, being back squatted is viewed as a fate worse than death. Lean into the hill. One of the most common army and infantry platitudes. During any pack march training where the terrain sees sees you going up any grade of incline, it is a certainty that someone will scream out the phrase, "Lean into the hill, let the hill do the work." This likely started as sincere advice from PTIs decades ago in an attempt to motivate a body of troops up a particularly nasty piece of terrain. Over the years, overuse has rendered this once sage advice into nothing more than satire, and it is often met with much eye-rolling and cringe, even when performed ironically. Get that gun going. The machine gun is the primary firepower of the infantry section. During both defensive and offensive operations, maintaining an effective rate of machine gun fire in order to suppress the enemy is critical to support maneuver or disrupt an enemy assault. Accordingly, during any section attack where there is more than a 0.001 second gap of machine gun fire, someone will feel the need to shriek this at the overworked machine gunner. While overused, this phrase may still be delivered unironically by a section commander or 2IC to a struggling machine gunner, although its efficacy as a motivational tool is questionable. BBDA bag. Like the fool's errands of civilian jobs that see an unwitting apprentice sent for a left-handed screwdriver or a long wait, the military too has unique methods of humiliating new personnel. Common examples include sending a new digger to collect a box of grid squares, ACOG batteries, or a schmick from the quartermaster. One of the more devious versions sees our bewildered digger dispatched to collect a BBDA bag. This is a play on the backblast danger area experienced when firing the M72A6, with the suggestion being a bag exists that can contain the rapidly venting gas and explosion of a launched 66mm rocket. Uchi, a term describing expensive, rare, or iconic equipment. This usually refers to non-issued kit privately purchased by the individual. This extends from combat uniforms and cold weather clothing to weapon ancillaries and helmet accessories. Boozer, term for the unit bar or on-base drinking area. This is usually opened once a week or for particular occasions. The boozer culture evolved has somewhat perished over the years as phenomena like drink driving and spousal abuse became less funny. In years gone by, alcohol was heavily subsidised and significantly cheaper than drinking out on town. This encouraged soldiers to do their drinking and tomfoolery on base. The logic used to be that by containing the degeneracy of the drunken digger to the barracks watering hole, they would be less likely to inflict themselves on the general public. No duff. While the history of the term varies depending where in the world you're from, in the Australian context, no duff is a radio code word denoting a real-time as opposed to training event. This most commonly applies to casualties in the field and signifies the need for a genuine casualty evacuation as opposed to broadcasting a training serial over the radio net. This terminology extends to daily digger conversations, with no duff being an expression used to denote utmost truth or sincerity, or to emphasise the veracity of a story. For example,
I just heard you stabbed for a dog and pony show, bro.
Bullshit.
No duff, mate.
to be found out stating no duff while telling a lie carries the most dire of consequences. More on that later. Sporties. In a typical barrack cycle, once a week on Thursdays sees some variety of sports played. This may involve inter-unit tournaments of rugby, cricket, soccer, or similar ball sports. Alternately, if there is no specific sports season, someone will arrange for a mandatory unit tug-of-war event where everyone has to pretend to be exhilarated. The spectator component is arguably the real fun. Usually, the most notoriously vocal digger in the unit will start hurling a tirade of verbal abuse at the opposition's team in an attempt to get under the skin of players and spectators alike.
You suck, you jackass.
Sporties is equally loved and loathed, depending on one's affinity for ball sports,
Watch where you're going, needle dick.
and is usually followed by a boozer. Shocks. Slang for an Australian Army reservist. This terminology stems from the Pacific Campaign of World War II, where national service soldiers were said to melt under the heat of battle like chocolate, hence chocolate soldiers or chocks. It is still used to this day and can be stated either endearingly or vindictively, depending on the delivery and tone. Pop smoke. The M18 smoke grenade is used for battlefield obscuration and signalling. Applying this context to digger terminology, to pop smoke means to depart an event, night out, or social occasion in a surreptitious manner. Similarly, to fade away means to leave someone or someplace in a sneaky fashion, but this is more commonly applied to bailing on a bad date. Doing so will likely get one labelled as an AJ. AJ. An acronym for Army Jerk. This is a term in common usage in garrison towns such as Townsville, Brisbane, Adelaide and Darwin, and is frequently applied by the civilian populace as a disparaging label towards Army members. Sunday Church. This refers to the bizarre uptick in pious behaviour during recruit training, which sees a high level of attendance to Sunday morning Mass. This is less about newly minted recruits feeling an increase in spiritual zealotry, and more so that attending Sunday Church means you avoid Sunday morning barracks cleaning and other assorted unpleasant routines. Security. In the context of Army Army tactics at the subunit level, security refers to maintaining visual and sensor alertness to any potential approaching enemy or threats. To set security involves posting personnel at key strategic locations in order to provide early warning or engage enemy forces. As it is therefore a central theme of many elements of strategy, security is frequently used as a placeholder parody reply when a digger is spot quizzed and does not know the correct answer. Security can be used as a sincere attempt to answer correctly, or ironically in an attempt to be a silly goose. FRED, an acronym for Field Ration Eating Device, the iconic multi-function tool that comes issued within the Australian Army ration packs. This is a steel utensil approximately 5 centimetres in length. It doubles as a can opener and spoon.
Come on, you motherfucker! Oh, shit! God damn it! Same shit, different day!
However, its lack of effectiveness at the latter task sees it more commonly referred to as the fucking ridiculous eating device. Sea Patrol. In a similar vein to the pump jets question of Pauline Hanson law, Greens Senator Sarah Hanson-Young also had a moment in the spotlight to demonstrate her knowledge of defence affairs. During a Senate References Committee in 2015, Senator Hanson-Young engaged in a line of questioning regarding the operational security classifications of Defence and Border Patrol operations. In doing so, she cited the double standard of the ADF endorsing the TV series Sea Patrol, seemingly unaware that it was not a documentary. This led to a bewildered response from the CEO of Border Protection, Mike Pizzullo, who immediately attempted to clarify if Senator Hanson-Young was in fact citing a fictional TV show as the smoking gun for her accusation in the following awkward exchange.
We have another television show, of course, about the Coast Guards. There does seem to be a little bit of a double standard here.
Sorry, Senator, the TV show about the Coast Guards, is that the fictional Sea Patrol program, or I don't know which one you're talking about?
In relation to fishing boats and so forth.
Well, we collaborate with the Channel 7 group of companies on border security.
Regardless, you've just admitted to having a deal with one television show where they're allowed to have access to border.
I don't think that.
Well, we have an arrangement with Channel 7. I'm not sure. I'm not aware of. I'll just quickly check with my director of media. We have no. Sorry, Mr. Waddell. We have no arrangement with any other company that I'm unaware of. Good, thank you.
Medals on the left.
I wear my medals. I wear my medals. I wear my medals on the left.
In 2018, the Australian War Memorial commissioned an album release to coincide with the 100th anniversary of the signing of the armistice. The album was largely overshone by one song in particular, On the Left. This was performed by Sisters in Arms, a trio of servicewomen from across Army, Navy and Air Force, singing a country music-inspired number on military service. While designed to bring attention and a sense of pride to serving women in the ADF, the absolute cringeworthy music video drew extreme scorn from both military and civilians alike. The theme of the song was intended to highlight women who had served and rightfully earned their ceremonial medals. This came about from Anzac Day, where servicewomen are often wrongfully chastised and told to put their medals on the right side of their chest, denoting that they are inherited and not earned. This exceptionally ill-advised PR move, while well-intentioned, well and truly missed the mark. Coming across as patronising rather than empowering, it even drew criticism from international tabloids. As a side note, while researching this video, I learnt the lyrics to On the Left are tragically not available online. Luckily, I've suffered the ordeal of listening to this disaster on repeat to transcribe them for you, so you don't have to. You can find them in the caption to this video. LID, a derogatory term used for a new member to the Army or unit, similar to rookie or boot in US Marine Corps parlance. Modern definitions state that LID is an acronym for Live-In Digger in regards to the junior soldiers who spend time living in the on-barracks accommodation. However, if someone tells you this is the explanation, immediately call them a LID and proceed to explain the historical usage of the term stems from old Aussie rhyming slang for Billy Kid. Level 2. Open Mouth 84. This digger rumour states that if you don't open your mouth while firing the 84mm Carl Gustav anti-tank weapon, your fillings or teeth will explode from the overpressure. Similar to this is the misguided belief that one must undo the caps on their water bottles before firing it to prevent them too from exploding. This is similar in concept to the BBDA bag and is told often sincerely to lids. Goffers and Gumpies. Army slang for soft drink and chocolate bars. Often platoons or courses will run a goffer fridge, where assorted flavours and varieties will be offered with payment taking the form of a tick sheet. The funds accrued from the goffer fridge will often go towards an end-of-year boozer, which in the past may or may not have involved scantily clad women. Questions for you. Are there any questions, queries, or doubtful points? Is the blueprint method to clarify facts of learning during an Army instructional period? This is to confirm that trainees have absorbed the information delivered during the class and provide an opportunity to clear up any confusion. This is immediately followed by questions for you. where the instructor proceeds to quiz the participants in random order on the lesson content. This usually results in the most smooth-brained digger in the room being chosen for questioning, with the logic being that if they understand it, the rest of the class does too. Many diggers have been left looking like a silly sausage during these quiz moments, left utterly exposed after being caught not paying attention or sleeping. TLAs, ECP, EFE, RMC, CDDRNRAR. The military sure does love acronyms. So much so that they even developed an acronym just to explain all the other acronyms. TLAs, or three-letter acronyms, refers to the jargon-filled language that is both written and verbal army communication. Dolphin trainer. As a young digger in a garrison town filled with AJs, courting can be a perilous experience filled with judgment and preconceived negative connotations of how a soldier behaves, most of which are well-deserved. As a result, the average 20-year-old soldier fresh from recruit training with a buzz cut and G-Shock watch may feel the need to lie about their occupation when conversing with a potential mate. Of all these fake occupations, the most common by far is that of dolphin trainer, a trade that sees bizarrely high employment rate in towns utterly devoid of dolphins or even oceans. Would you rather? One of many verbal games played in moments of boredom by diggers that usually starts innocuously before rapidly delving into obscene comparisons of deviance and degeneracy. Would you rather works by offering up two hypothetical scenarios or choices, both of which are undesirable. They are often needlessly homoerotic and inspire heated debate over the choices made by the participants. Don't count that one. A phrase uttered by physical training instructors during the basic fitness assessment. This is used when observing a member doing push-ups, sit-ups, or pull-ups, and the PTI decides the rep was not performed to the prescribed standard. R word. Diggers of all backgrounds are a superstitious bunch.
I'm telling you, I got a bad feeling about this drop.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling on this one, all right?
I don't have a good feeling about this one.
Superstition is in some cases grounded in reality, and in others is mere myth. One of the most common examples is the forbidden R word while deployed in the field. In some circles, mere utterance of the word rain while in the bush will draw an immediate and vindictive response from peers.
Oh, wow!
The word rain.
Out your fucking mouth!
Like the Dark Lord, it is believed that simply speaking the word can conjure storm clouds to appear and dump unappreciated water on the heads of soldiers already living in the dirt with naught but a hoochie for protection against the elements. Hotbox. This is a type of ration served while on duty that, while made of fresh food, is often unpleasant. A hotbox may be prepared in an on-base kitchen and is common food for soldiers performing routine guard duty. Hotboxes may also be issued out bush if a field kitchen is present, such as on large-scale exercises. Depending on the motivation of your cooks, the quality and culinary experience may vary greatly.
That is fucking disgusting.
Black rifle. As I've mentioned in every other video on this channel, the EF-88 service rifle was originally tan and khaki, before being made black at the singular request of the Chief of Army. This is a topic that winds me up severely, and as I've deep dived it before, you can check it out in the other EF-88 video. Melon Man. The Melon Man is one of many tales told to frighten young diggers at night while out bush. There are multiple variations, but the most common involve a Yowie-esque creature that roams the jungles of Tully training area. The most common legend has it that an SASR patrol was observing a tall, hairy, strange-looking creature drinking from Jarrah Creek, and reported it over the radio as enemy activity before being told that there was no training enemy present in the sector. Another version of the story presents the Melon Man as a Vietnam veteran who, after being crippled with PTSD, fled into the mountains of North Queensland and shunned the luxuries of society in favour of the darkness of the jungle canopy. Other myths and legends involving cryptids are linked to other training areas, such as the Beast of Shoalwater Bay, which terrorised a recon patrol during the early 90s. Forced fun. The phenomenon whereby it is made mandatory to attend an event or occasion outside the scope of military work or training, often by using direct or indirect means of coercion. Examples include having to attend a yearly function or dinner outside of work hours, or family social days. These are often accompanied by the illusion of choice, with the common tactic being to frame it as not being compulsory, but simultaneously stating that non-compliance will instead result in guard duty or another undesirable stabbing. Twerking Navy. Seemingly not having learnt the lessons from their previous foray into music videos, in 2021, the Defence Force elected to celebrate the commissioning of the $2 billion Navy ship HMAS Supply by hiring an all-female civilian dance troupe. Marking the reverence of the occasion, the performance by the 101 Doll Squadron involved a somewhat risque act, including hip-hop dancing and twerking. Meagerly clad in revealing outfits, the Doll Squadron performed against the backdrop of the hulking grey frame of the new vessel. While it was a questionable way to usher in the Navy's latest asset, the Doll Squadron were ultimately hired at the request of the Navy and performing their routine as contracted. Further, they were poorly represented by an ABC report, which featured intentionally misleading and awkward editing editing that suggested the top military chiefs and Governor General were present during the routine. In reality, the performance had occurred prior to the arrival of the dignitaries and was one of many acts conducted that day alongside more conservative displays such as a military brass band. The ABC controversy diluted the scrutiny levelled at the Navy, and no further explanation was ever provided regarding the choice to hire the Dole Squadron. Fire picket. Picket is the task of maintaining security through an alert sentry at all times. This can be done for tactical reasons during training or operations and is typically conducted at night to allow a section or platoon to rest while in the field without fear of enemy incursion. In some training circumstances, however, there may be non-tactical situations that sees troops overnighting without any such enemy threat. Enter the fire picket, an almost completely arbitrary sentry rotation that sees every member of the section or platoon alternate through a shift of alertness throughout the evening. Historically, this was conducted to keep a watch for rapidly approaching or igniting bushfires. However, this is seldom the reality of its execution, as fire picket is conducted everywhere from concrete buildings, the middle of the desert, or in the soaking wet jungle. Fire picket has accordingly become a meme in and of itself, and is the acknowledgement that everyone will take a turn waking up throughout the evening, but no one really knows why. Motorbike course. Linked to stabbings, the motorbike course is an effective and time-tested way to seek volunteers for a usually undesirable task. Really effective on lids or the extremely gullible. This technique will see usually a sergeant approach the platoon and call for a show of hands of volunteers for a motorbike course. Not wanting to miss out on what intuitively sounds like an exceptionally fun training experience, overzealous diggers will rapidly thrust their hands up in enthusiasm. Now having volunteered and been entered into the notebook, they learn only too late that the motorbike course is actually a stabbing for weekend guard duty. This technique essentially absolves the person doing the stabbing of having to make a choice, and generally gets a good chuckle from the crowd if and when people fall for it. Fat truck, a compact box truck that does the rounds of large military bases selling junk food. Consisting of both a refrigerated side compartment and a heated oven in the back, the fat truck offers gophers, gumpies, dimmies and wingdings. These days there are healthier food alternatives presented, such as sandwiches and protein bars. However, the fat truck has retained its namesake from a time when deep-fried goodness and chalky milk reigned supreme. Check Bibbidi-A. The same backblast danger area mentioned in Bibbidi-A bags rears its head again. However, this time as a sly verbal cue to be mindful of listening ears. Check the BBDA when firing the M72 involves glancing rearwards to ensure no friendly troops are located within the danger area of the rocket backblast. When used in conversation, to check BBDA therefore prompts someone that the conversation should not continue in the current setting, or that the person forming the topic of conversation is approaching from behind the speaker. Double duff, a Navy tradition that serves as a deterrent against those who crave additional dessert while aboard a ship. Folklore says that if desired, one may take a second serving of dessert from the mess deck, however must first stand tall on a chair and loudly proclaim, "My name is Private Jono, and I am a double duffer." This is usually followed by scorn,
ugly,
ridicule,
right, I'll tell you what, you fat little
and assertions about the person's weight or physique.
So fat. So fat.
While strictly a Navy tradition, it has been a point of bewilderment for embarked Army personnel aboard troop transport vessels. Hamstring stretch. Physical training is a staple of Army life, and group PT with your section, platoon or company is a standard morning activity while in barracks. At the conclusion of group PT, the person leading the activity will typically ensure an adequate cool down and stretching period is performed. This often sees them stabbing a random participant to take the group through the first stretch. This stretch, without fail, 99.99999% of the time, will always be the hamstring stretch. The workout may have even been entirely upper body focused, but still, it remains a great certainty that if stabbed to do so, a digger will offer up the hamstring stretch as the first exercise, usually accompanied with an impertinent grin while everyone else groans collectively. Two Dads, a nickname for any digger with a hyphenated surname. By way of pop culture example, Daniel Day-Lewis is a famous actor who, if enlisted in the Australian Army, would immediately be called Two Dads, and quite likely, a lid. Diggernet. The Diggernet is the rumour mill that runs through the enlisted ranks of the Army. It is a non-tangible network of information that seamlessly flows through all enlisted soldiers. It is akin to the Force from Star Wars, or the AWA trees in Avatar, a life force carrying information from digger to digger. Like all workplace rumour mills, however, it is not so adept at discerning fact from fiction, leading to the Diggernet seldom being a credible source for accurate information. Battle Brolly, a compact umbrella carried in a large field pack during training. The Battle Brolly was pioneered by recon soldiers, however has since expanded into broader usage. It is usually camouflage painted and serves as a rapidly deployable method to keep the R word at bay. Chicken feed. Ammunition is heavy, like really heavy. A common loadout is 7 30-round magazines for riflemen and up to 800 rounds for machine gunners. During training exercises, less motivated or undisciplined diggers may feel compelled to ease the burden of their load carriage equipment, especially during training where there is seemingly not to be a lot of shooting. a digger may be tempted to reduce their carried weight by offloading some of that pesky ammunition into the bush. As this is conducted covertly and often on the move, the act of throwing fistfuls of 5.56mm blank rounds into the grass while patrolling gives the appearance of dispensing granular bird feed, hence chicken feeding. Hello, hey, hi. Quick question. Who wants a motorbike course? Surprise! You've been stabbed for an ad break. If you're having a cool and good time, be sure to check out the website to cop some Gucci CSRC merch, and also check out the subscriber blog for a bunch of free resources, such as the visual guide PDFs. If you'd like to support the channel, please do consider signing up. You can find the link in the video description below. A big shout out to the loyalist tier subscribers, who sustain my will to live and motivate me to continue on the daily. Back to the list. Level 3. Own time ball court. This is an amalgamation of the phrases "you're in your own time now" and "the ball is in your court." These prosaic idioms are favourites of platoon sergeants and company sergeant majors army-wide. CSMs will glibly deliver these sayings to a body of troops who are invariably performing some manner of task that is falling behind schedule. The implication is that the diggers in question are masters of their own destiny and would be finished by now if they had simply worked harder. The ball is in your court is applied in similar settings, however is also delivered in moments where a digger is forced to make a decision regarding their fate, usually with no positive outcomes. Wheelbarrow, another favourite of CSMs and sergeants. Wheelbarrow with a is the prefix phrase afforded to someone with a long or difficult to pronounce surname, often ethnic or foreign in nature. This occurs during roll call, where the roll caller is unfamiliar with the troops present. Instead of attempting to sound out the name or ask for clarification, they will instead state wheelbarrow with a and suffix the phrase with the initial of the offending surname in question. Semi-tac. To remain fully tactical in field training means to sustain a constant state of full alert and conduct oneself with the assumption that the enemy is present at all times. This manifests as sticking to hard administrative routine, such as not smoking, no cooking, and constantly applying camouflage to the individual and the position. It is training grounded in reality that asks you to perform every single task and action you've been trained to conduct as if your life depended on it, due to the constant and impending threat of enemy action. An example where one can expect to remain tactical is exercise Talisman Sabre, a large-scale, peer-on-peer training evolution. In contrast, non-tactical field training is devoid of a narrative involving an omnipresent enemy. As such, there exists no requirement for hard routine, and the luxuries of field life can be enjoyed. An example of non-tac is a specialist course, which may see a long duration of field training, however segmented into learning specific skills or weapon systems. Somewhere in between full tac and non-tac, however, lies the dreaded semi-tac. Semi-tac is one of the most frustrating field experiences, as the rules are ambiguous and constantly in a state of flux. Semi-tac offers none of the luxuries of non-tac, however retains some of the characteristics of full tac. Accordingly, semi-tac is a highly undesirable field condition and is usually the result of a poorly planned training activity. Lid lifter. The aforementioned hot box food ration is usually delivered with a variety of options across a broad spectrum of the gastronomic experience. Common examples include curried sausages and chicken parmigiana. In many cases, the hot boxes are labelled with a number code system, however are still issued in a randomised order, which necessitates individual bartering to acquire one's preferred meal. In other cases, the hot boxes are not labelled at all, meaning the meal will remain a mystery until the cardboard lid has been peeled back to reveal its contents. Field courtesy and tradition dictates that you eat what you're given, and often you may end up with a dish not to your liking. This, however, is where the lid lifter appears. This heinous act sees a morally flexible digger peel back the lid of a hot box to first check the contents. This is viewed as exceptionally poor form, akin to cheating the hands of fate. Being caught lid lifting will likely cause outrage, and someone will invariably scream "lid lifter" to draw attention to your crime. Cock of the week. Ritual humiliation is an effective and time-tested method of reprogramming certain behaviours in the military. In some units, the Boozer Parade will feature a weekly parliament where nominations are made for the most smooth-brained or embarrassing act performed throughout that week. These range from workplace mishaps, such as emplacing a claymore backwards, or external faux pas such as someone pooing their pants on the dance floor of a local nightclub. In the case of one particular unit, the consequence of winning Cock of the Week meant wearing a Vietnam-era combat helmet with a giant rubber phallus drilled into the forehead. The winner would then be given a yard glass filled with everything from beer, rum, and tomato sauce, and would have to scull it in front of the boozer while being pelted with cans and other projectiles. Army timing. A phenomena that states no matter how long you've been waiting for something, it will always commence or arrive at the most inconvenient moment to you. Allow me to set the scene. You've been sitting in the field awaiting a truck ride back to base. You've been waiting close to 2 hours and are holding off the urge to poo the whole time. Bugger this, you say, grabbing your entrenching tool and walking into the bush. Just as you've dug the hole, dropped your pants, and relaxed your anus, the sound of a truck comes chugging around the corner. This example perfectly summarises the experience of army timing. Savvy diggers will often try and trigger army timing in an event to prompt the next event. Common tricks include lighting a cigarette or detailed stripping a machine gun. However, the hands of time seldom fall for such cheap bruises. DS stick. At the notorious Jungle Warfare Training Centre in Tully, North Queensland, resides a special breed of warrant officer. While the program and facilities for jungle training at Tully are excellent, the quality of the resident staff instructors may vary greatly. This has led to the stereotypical visage of a Tully DS, or directing staff, being a mid-40s, divorced, and possibly overweight warrant officer plodding behind your platoon in the jungle. These jungle DS are notorious for their large wooden stick, which doubles as a pointer and baton. The DS stick is often ornately decorated with paracord, and in years gone by was used to whack diggers on the backside found not taking an appropriate fire position. EDP-1. Administration takes up an enormous chunk of barracks time. One key component is individual readiness and ensuring one's paper trail is up to date in the event of a hasty or contingency deployment. The DP1 checklist and later EDP1 is a notorious paper trail that covers admins such as medical checks, dental currency, next of kin, and equipment checklists. Getting a platoon of 20-something delinquents to stay abroad of this tedious paperwork is an ordeal, and EDP-1 is viewed with dread by both soldiers and commanders alike. Robocop. You might recall I mentioned that being caught lying on a no-duff carries serious consequences. There are perhaps no more severe outcomes than that of the no-duff Robocop. Stating no-duff Robocop as a demonstration of truth is the highest citation of your veracity. Accordingly, by claiming Robocop, you acknowledge that you do so in the knowledge that if your assertion is found to be untrue, do so at the risk of Robocop. In this context, Robocop is this grotesque haircut that mimics the helmet of the 80s action movie character of the same name. There are other variations, such as No Duff Hobocop, which if executed, sees the claimant having to spend a night sleeping on the streets or under a bridge, like that of a hobo. Friday Stomp. Carrying heavy packs is part and parcel of Army and particularly infantry life. Stomping is Australian Army slang for moving at speed while carrying a heavy pack. Known as rucking in the US or tabbing in the UK. As part of morning PT, tradition says that every Friday is the most appropriate day for this activity. LSD. Not the psychedelic narcotic, but rather the running methodology known as long slow distance. This is a favourite of young, keen lieutenants, and a platoon with a new commander fresh from the academy can expect to be treated to many LSD PT sessions for morning PT. Wolverine. An obscure class of linger. Wolverine refers to the mystical healing abilities afforded to some diggers after being returned from field. A typical example sees a soldier injure themselves while training, and instead of continuing the activity, is sent back to base from the bush. If that soldier is then spotted in the gym the next day, they are likely to be sarcastically commended on their likeness to the Marvel character Wolverine, whose superpower was his advanced healing properties. Mad Cow. The Mad Cow is one of the oldest and most notorious bars in Townsville, a true hive of scum and villainy. It is a place of disrepute, notorious to both soldiers and civilians alike. While Mad Cow is the example relevant to Townsville or 3 Brigade, every garrison town has their own equivalent, such as monsoons in Darwin, sleep depth visions. Your mind does strange things after abnormally prolonged periods of being awake. This is compounded by effects of the blue or green hues cast over the visual world while using night vision. Sleep deprivation is a common training experience during defensive operations, where soldiers spend days digging fighting holes and trenches. While not digging, one will typically take up a sentry position, which involves staring into the darkness of the bush, trying desperately to remain alert for approaching enemy. In these moments, many will experience lucid hallucinations. Faces will appear in trees, stumps will turn into hideous monsters, and enemy hordes will be conjured up by the imagination. Your dad. An extremely passive-aggressive insult directed at a usually unpopular or incompetent member of the chain of command.
Can you believe that fucking retard is in charge of people?
Instead of referencing the person in question by name, they will instead be labelled the father of the third party with whom the conversation is occurring. This may be done if the opposite member of the conversation is amicable with said unpopular person in contrast to the majority, or for no reason at all aside from not wanting to say the person's name. A common occurrence might include a verbal exchange about a disliked CSM. For example,
"Hi, Robbo, what's going on?" "Yeah, we were about to knock off, but your dad said we had to go non-tech the artery." "Well, he's not my dad."
Camel. This refers to a camouflage blob found in the Australian Army multicam uniform. The particular blotch in question bears an uncanny appearance to a rather regal-looking camel equipped with a majestic moustache. I've gone into more detail on the camel in the last video, so go check that out if you're into the finer details of camouflage. Mad Minutes. The historical term stems from Vietnam, where a mad minute referred to a section or platoon firing their weapons at a cyclic rate for 60 seconds in order to regain fire superiority. In the more modern setting, a mad minute refers to a fight between two diggers, usually as a result of a personal grievance or grudge.
Again, we're here. Very quick, very effective.
Mad minutes are typically conducted at the boozer, and in the Dark Ages were a bloody bare-knuckle affair. However, recent decades more commonly see the use of 16-ounce boxing gloves. It's not the most technical of boxing matches, with haymakers aplenty and much clamouring and hurling of projectiles from a rowdy boozer crowd. Field calendar. In many cases, the first thing you think about when arriving outfield is how badly you want to no longer be in the field. The countdown of weeks, days, and hours of field time remaining is a hobby in and of itself while in the bush that can keep diggers entertained for hours. The field calendar is a rare display of optimism, or some might say delusion, which sees remaining days struck from the countdown for any number of nonsensical reasons. For example, if it's currently Monday and the exercise ends in 5 days, you don't count Friday as it's the last day. Similarly, you don't count the current day because you're already living it. On Wednesday, there's a pause X to conduct after action reviews, so you don't really count that one. And on Thursday, there's an admin day to hand back the laser simulation kit, so you may as well scratch that one off. This leaves a grand total of 1 day of field remaining before it's time to go home. Crusty. Crusty refers to a senior or elderly warrant officer, usually a Class 2 that has hit ceiling rank and been relegated to undesirable posting locations around the country. A crusty WO2 or CSM is characterised by extreme resistance to change and lack of ability or desire to adapt to evolving military norms, be they tactical, technological, or cultural. Crusty CSMs are generally incompetent or disliked, as their lack of skill currency sees them clutch to easily enforced standards such as dress and bearing or grooming.
You are unsightly, unsanitary.
Police that rooster!
Crust are often appreciators of the regimental aspects of military life, while not being particularly talented at the martial facets of military training. It is, however, important to note that not all old Warrant Officer Class 2s are crusty, and not all crusties are WO2s. While synonymous with CSMs, being crusty is truly a state of mind, and a mindset of crust may even be found in sergeants, or in rare cases, corporals. Just to reiterate, the most commonly used and favourite phrase of a warrant officer, likely a crusty one, but not always. Whenever a unit or company commander has finished addressing the unit, a warrant officer, be it the regimental sergeant major or company sergeant major, will invariably feel the need to add talking points to the issues or topics already covered by the CO or major. This will commonly see the CSM take the stage and proceed to repeat the exact same message, albeit in a slightly rephrased and less eloquent fashion. No one knows for certain why CSMs feel the need to just reiterate what the boss said, but it's the rules. Specifically, the second most commonly used and favourite phrase of a warrant officer, most definitely a crusty one. This is a play on the trend that crusty warrant officers are in some cases not particularly intelligent, or simply dropped out of school to join the army before completing high school level English. In a common phrasing faux pas for warrant officers, the words specifically and pacifically are used interchangeably, leading to some bewildering and amusing briefs. Sneens. The third most favourite thing of a warrant officer, often a crusty one, but possibly also a non-crusty divorcee. Sneens refers to the fashion crime that is combining classic jeans with a pair of sneakers. In the memeiest manifestation of this outfit, faded blue Levi's are combined with New Balance sneakers and an off-brand striped polo shirt. This usually telegraphs their status as either crust or a living on-base divorcee, and also ensures seamless entry into the sergeant's mess. Banjos. The name for a bacon and egg sandwich, typically issued as part of field or range day breakfast. The historical etymology stems from the visual of a digger clutching the sandwich in one hand while frantically wiping dripping egg yolk from their chest with the other. This act gives the appearance of strumming a small stringed instrument, hence banjo. Shirt wearer. This refers to one who has spent time in a specialist role, usually in a support company platoon in an infantry battalion. However, was largely motivated by clout as opposed to a sense of professional pride. This results in them posting to the platoon, doing the bare minimum if any work, being immediately removed for underperforming, and then continuing to wear the shirt 10 years later as if they were an integral and valued contributor to the legacy of the platoon in question. Sniper's curse. This applies to numerous trades and specialist skills. However, the curse explicitly states that one's firstborn will inevitably be a daughter. Conspiracy suggests this is due to the proliferation of electronic countermeasures, lead toxicity, explosions or blast overpressure, anti-malarial sprays or medications, or a combination of any of the above. Level 4. Check stance, fix stance. In the early stages of the close combat shooting program, the School of Infantry was churning out instructors courtesy of the Combat Shooting Instructor Course, or CSIC. The shooting program and techniques were rife with catchphrases and sound bites that supported various teaching points. One soon emerged as a most overused phrase, check stance, fix stance, a verbal command prompting firers to adjust their position, usually after completing static turns. 8 ballers. The School of Infantry is located in the small country town of Singleton, New South Wales. Nestled in the scenic Hunter Valley region, as with many small towns, it is also host to a group of bored, juvenile delinquents. These local singleton rapscallions banded together to form a gang that would come to be known as the Eight Ballers. The Eight Ballers would inflict themselves upon the general public and also on unwary trainees from School of Infantry on town visitations. This led to numerous cases of small groups of rifleman trainees getting jumped and bashed
Come up the lane, you fucking bum.
by a cohort of 16-year-olds,
You want to come have a crack, do ya?
much to the amusement of their peers. Bunghole, the nickname for a type of fruitcake that was notorious for creating stomach-churning constipation. The original bunghole was issued as part of 10-man ration packs and was the Big Sister branded fruit pudding. The modern version is this devilish little red plastic packet, which is usually issued as an accompanying sweet to hot boxes while in the field or on duty. Sub 1 up ya. This phrase is uttered as a gleeful jest in reaction to learning someone has been nominated to attend the Subject 1 for Corporal course, known in short as Sub 1. While an inevitable course for progression through the Army ranks, Sub 1 is generally viewed by many as unpleasant, and in some cases may even be a stabbing. This phrase has extra meaning in Laverack Barracks Townsville, where the Sub 1 drill squares are located within visual and screaming distance from a busy public road. Accordingly, it is not an uncommon prank to do a drive-by of the outside of the base while honking erratically and shrieking the phrase, "Get a Sub 1 up ya," out the car window. This lark became so meta in Townsville that there are even reports of civilians joyfully screaming this while hooting past the base. Rock throwing. Similar to army timing, rock throwing is typically conducted while in the field and waiting for a truck or other arbitrary or unknown event. After having waited a long enough time frame, it is an inevitability that a single digger will pick up a rock and throw it at a nearby tree, stump, or pole. Without further instruction or words spoken, this pastime will spread like a bad case of mad cow chlamydia, and there will soon be a steady trickle of other diggers joining in on the sport. It is usually short-lived fun, and partakers will normally only participate until they've scored a successful hit and acquired the dopamine hit, after which they will likely return to being slumped on their pack bored. Midpoint. Midpoint was a failed and slightly scandalous camouflage pattern intended to serve during Australia's Afghanistan campaign. It was a blend of both the DPCU and DPDU patterns and was universally panned by diggers. I won't go into much detail on this, as I'd like to do a deep dive video on this exact topic in the future. Range sangers. The alternative to receiving a hot box or banjo in the field is to receive a glad wrap covered sandwich. Usually containing a mix of Wonder White and wholemeal bread, the common offering is a mix of ham and cheese or salad varieties. Regardless of the contents, one can rest assured that the sandwiches have been transported in an ice-filled esky, and by the time of consumption are therefore soggier than a night out in Tully. Work through lunch. This is a common ploy used by the chain of command when attempting to incentivize completion of a task or work effort. It usually sees a group of diggers performing a late morning work party, which is then extended into the sacred barracks lunch break. The motivator, and often lie, here being that by working through lunch, the task will be completed sooner, and in turn the diggers will be allowed to knock off earlier than usual. What routinely happens instead is the diggers work through lunch, the task takes far longer than ever anticipated, and everyone ends up finishing on scheduled knock-off time anyway, although with a rumbling stomach from having missed the midday meal. Comms rock. A rock thrown at someone to gain their attention. This might be conducted in an attempt to maintain noise discipline in the field by electing to throw a stone at an outwards facing sentry instead of calling out their name. It may also be used during chaotic or noisy environments such as section attacks. Bullet jump. A series of poorly illustrated graphics in recruit training PowerPoint lessons from the mid-thousands caused generations of confusions in the understanding of external ballistics. These images, combined with a zeroing procedure on the old F-88 donut sight, created the organisational fallacy that when firing the F-88 rifle, the bullet jumps when leaving the barrel. This misunderstanding stemmed from a diagram which poorly demonstrated the correlation between line of sight, line of departure, and trajectory. Further, the 100-metre zero with the carry handle Swarovski sight was conducted with a vertical offset, meaning it was in fact a 300-metre point of aim, point of impact zero, but conducted at 100 metres. The layfolk of the army insufficiently understood this, and it caused the myth of bullet jump to be created as an explanation as to why one had to hold low at 200 metres when shooting the F-88. Accidental. To be late to morning roll call, or known as first parade in army parlance, is an extremely big deal compared to the civilian workforce. Accordingly, the tongue-in-cheek method of covering for a mate who may have accidentally slept through an alarm is to simply state that they're at dental when their name is called and they're found absent. At dental can also be used to cover for a digger who is skiving or shirking mandated duty responsibilities. At dental is so common a meme that it affords the user a degree of plausible deniability. as it should be immediately clarified by the roll caller. It can also be delivered in moments of absurdity for comic relief, such as while outfield and being asked where a particular digger is when they should be manning the machine gun. Home blokes. In the early thousands, prior to common usage of smartphones, illicit materials in the form of magazines were a staple of army culture. These naughty publications were known as stick mags, and they retained a great deal of value even after purchase, particularly on exercise or while deployed. One magazine in particular, Picture, contained a segment where they would display user-submitted photos. These would include both female and male entries, named Home Girls and Home Blokes respectively. The Home Blokes section contained full frontal graphic nudity and an assortment of phalluses attached to usually rather non-athletic hosts. A favourite prank of the era was to carefully cut out select images from the Home Blokes section and strategically cache them away in someone's kit or personal belongings. If well executed, this would see the prank victim howling in rage every day or so, as they located another doodle photo concealed within their equipment. Doxy dreams. Doxycycline, or Doxy, is an antibiotic tablet taken while deployed overseas or while training for extended periods in the tropics. Its key purpose in the army context is the prevention of malaria, and is usually taken daily. Digger legend has it that Doxy is the cause of vivid and surreal dreams and nightmares, although the science backing this is sketchy. Nigel McDargan. A Facebook account run by an anonymous user portraying a crusty Vietnam veteran. The name Nigel McDargan is a play on the label Dargan, which is another nickname for a crusty senior NCO sergeant or warrant officer. Nigel routinely posts comments under photos and posts on official unit Facebook accounts, and can be most commonly found lurking in the 7 Brigade Facebook page. His comments are usually non-contextual, but amusing quips about the SLR's superiority to the Steyr as a service rifle platform. Indy 500. In 2004, the Army was asked by the organisers of the Indy 500 to conduct a helicopter flyover as part of an airshow. The Indy 500 is a motor race held on the scenic streets adjacent to the beaches of the Gold Coast, and sees large crowds of rowdy and usually drunken revellers crowding for a view of the race. The Army was happy to oblige, however was less pleased when it was revealed the crew chief of the Huey conducting the flyover was holding a sign displaying a risque request aimed at the crowd below. Unluckily for the crew, they were photographed by a member of the public from a nearby high-rise, and the image soon went viral. The incident was picked up by the media, and the crew was stood down from duty not long after. Snake, slang for a sergeant, used either vindictively or endearingly depending on the delivery and context. Snake is also the warning screamed loudly in the field in a digger-lawyer attempt to cover up a negligent discharge. The idea is to yell snake immediately after witnessing a fellow digger ND in the field, the implication being they were firing their weapon in self-defense. This works in a similar respect to at dental, insofar as they're both amusing yet ineffective ways of covering for a mate. Snake is therefore more commonly yelled as a joke after any isolated shots ring out regardless of the setting. Rupees Run. Rupert's Wood is a small rural suburb on the outskirts of Townsville that has a single roadside convenience store. Critically, this store is the last place to purchase food and drink or snacks on the road to high-range training area. During extended stays in the bush, getting a Rupees Run is a small luxury in an existence formed around eating ration packs, hot boxes, and bunghole. A trip to Rupees offers a small reprieve and access to the delicacies found at any standard Australian service station. Another example is Matilda's for northbound soldiers departing Brisbane. Wet bulb. This refers to the wet bulb global temperature, or WBGT, which is an environmental reading based on temperature, humidity, wind, and direct sunlight. These metrics are gathered in a contraption known as the widget, which is a mandatory element of risk management for training activities. The output of this information is a set of colour-coded activity guidelines, with green being normal and black being extreme. In the hot and humid climates of Australia, the wet bulb reading therefore becomes the centre of gravity for any training, and it is not uncommon for enormous brigade-scale training evolutions to be at the mercy of the wet bulb and the accompanying physical exertion restrictions. Jack. One of the gravest of insults and most career-damaging labels one can earn. To be Jack is to display obscene levels of self-interest, selfishness, or lack of work ethic. The phrase, "don't go Jack on your mates," is a common caution to encourage teamwork and group cohesion to achieve a common goal. High levels or consistent displays of Jackness will likely earn someone the title of Jack, which indicates someone is probably not a team player and not to be trusted. Level 5. Das Boot. Das Boot was the nickname given to a prosthetic leg that was liberated from a dead Taliban fighter in Afghanistan sometime around 2009. Claimed by the SASR, the boot was used as a drinking vessel during nights at the unit boozer at the base in Tarankout. Images showing troopers drinking from Das Boot would later be leaked to the media, with The Guardian newspaper publishing the photos in 2020. This was in a period in which the SASR and Special Operations Command were under immense scrutiny, courtesy of the Brereton Report. Brereton Report. This is the name given to the Inspector General of the Australian Defence Force Afghanistan Inquiry Report, or IGADF, named after lead investigator Paul Brereton. The core of the report sought to investigate allegations of ADF war crimes committed in Afghanistan, with a focus on members of the Special Operations Command. Delivered in 2020, the Brereton findings were made public access and detailed specific incidents as severe as alleged murder. The report drew international condemnation from adversarial state actors, with the Chinese Foreign Ministry releasing a computer-generated image of an Australian soldier holding a knife to an Afghan child's throat. Similarly, the Russian Foreign Ministry released a statement questioning the Australian government's ability to protect the rules-based world order. As the report was not a criminal investigation per se, its release to the public caused extreme resentment from defence personnel who largely felt the units and personnel in question were not afforded a fair judicial process. Additionally, its release rapidly created a sentiment of contempt towards the ADF in many public circles, and tainted the reputation of the ADF to a degree not witnessed since the Vietnam War. The fallout from the Brereton report has gone on to sour internal defence relationships, with current CDF Angus Campbell accused of failures of command and double standards, given his own involvement in Afghanistan as then commander of JTF 633. Heard APOP, also linked to alleged Afghanistan war crimes. This refers to allegations by an anonymous US Marine helicopter crew chief known by the pseudonym Josh. During an investigative report by journalist Mark Willesee, Josh alleged that while working with a platoon from 2nd Commando Regiment in Helmand Province, the commandos had executed a Taliban prisoner. This was based on him hearing a pop over the radio and the associated quantity of prisoners boarding the helicopter. This allegation went on to be disproven, and Heston Russell, then commander of the platoon in question, won a defamation lawsuit against the ABC, publishers of the original article. Josh and the ABC would later issue formal apologies, with the ABC article being found in breach of audience and consumer affairs policy. Jedi Council. A 2013 internal investigation found a large number of ADF personnel were involved in creating and distributing derogatory, demeaning, and repugnant emails. Over 170 personnel between Lance Corporal and Major were sacked or disciplined as a result of the email chains, which included non-consensual and explicit imagery of female personnel. The group referred to itself as the Jedi Council and made use of the Defense Restricted Network to disseminate emails featuring pornographic material and exploitative materials of servicewomen. The ringleader of the group pled guilty to the charges, and the incident drew widespread criticism of the ADF and caused reputational damage that in some respect lingers to this day. Snowing at 5 Avon. In 2018, personnel from 5 Aviation Squadron in Townsville were grounded as part of allegations of a wide-ranging narcotics ring. 10 people, including officers, maintainers, and aircrew, were prosecuted in a defence operation stemming from an anonymous tip. The military police conducted a raid of the headquarters, and personnel were found with traces of cocaine, ecstasy, and methamphetamines in their systems while on duty. ID for PT. Speaking of illicit narcotics, the Army tends to dissuade their consumption on account of a strict zero-tolerance policy. This is usually enforced by random drug testing, which is typically conducted in the mornings during PT time. While the intent is to make it a surprise to the participants, the drug test procedure mandates that members present their military ID card. This telegraphs the impending drug test in an amusing fashion, as it is immediately obvious to the 5 random diggers mysteriously stabbed to go to company headquarters with their ID card what is about to transpire. 1RAR photo. In 2000, before deploying to East Timor, a platoon from 1RAR decided to spice up their annual group photo by adding some rather questionable costumes. In the platoon of 26 men, 21 members were wearing improvised white hoods in an apparent attempt at simulating Ku Klux Klan members. To really drive the point home, the remaining 4 members of indigenous descent were seated front and centre, albeit without hoods. The photo found its way into the public domain, where it soon caused outrage and drew claims of institutionalised racism within the Army ranks. It was publicised in numerous national papers, with the soldiers involved in the hood wearing facing disciplinary action. 2RAR Oktoberfest. Sexual discrimination and misconduct remained topical to defence in 2014 on account of the Jedi Council, so it was little surprise when 2RAR held an Oktoberfest boozer a year later, complete with scantily clad barmaids. It was poorly received by both Army Command and the media. To further exacerbate the issue, 2RAR members had been specifically instructed to not hire topless adult entertainers, as a result of incidents the year prior at the SASR boozer in Perth. Nonetheless, at some stage through the evening, the bar girls were paid to doff their meagre attire, and the media got wind of the evening by way of the unofficial unit Facebook page. 3RAR DFSW. In 2000, 3RAR was already under media and defence scrutiny after a string of bastardisation incidents and investigations from the late 90s. An expose was published by none other than Time magazine and detailed serious incidents of assault and physical violence. Later the same year, images were posted online of 3RAR personnel in the rock band Blood Oath, whose lyrics and gestures were spicy to say the least. Tanya Zayeta was an Australian TV personality and later Bollywood starlet who in 2008 conducted a 17-day entertainment concert for diggers in the Middle East. It was later alleged in a leaked defence report that Zayeta had slept with Special Forces soldiers at a main Australian base in Tarankout. Zayeta strongly refuted the claims, which resulted in the Defence Department issuing a formal apology for the disclosure. While it was initially rumoured that fellow celebrity Angry Anderson had been the originator of the leak, he was later quoted doubting the legitimacy of the allegations. Zayeta would later win a defamation lawsuit against the Daily Telegraph, who had alleged in their reporting that Zayeta consented to being videotaped and photographed performing sexual acts with Australian soldiers during the entertainment tour. Mefloquine, also known as Lariam, was an anti-malarial drug that was issued as part of a trial to soldiers deployed to Bougainville and East Timor in the late 90s. It was being tested for efficacy when compared against doxycycline, which would go on to become the anti-malarial drug of choice for the ADF and remains so today. It was revealed in later years that there were dubious levels of consent and awareness provided regarding the nature of the trial, and in particular, the potential side effects. Diggers reported symptoms including suicidal ideation, hallucinations, and nightmares, which emerged years after the trial concluded. In 2017, a government report determined that there was no evidence mefloquine causes or triggers PTSD-like symptoms, a claim which was aggressively rejected by diggers involved in the trial. Russian gunships. In 1997, Papua New Guinea was battling separatists in Bougainville in a bloody but underreported conflict that cost tens of thousands of lives. Unable to reach a diplomatic solution, then Prime Minister Sir Julius Chan contracted a British private security company, Sandline International, to provide a military solution to end the conflict. The $50 million contract would see a team of Western PMCs quash the rebellion on behalf of the PNG government. Part of the plan would see 2 Mi-24 Russian gunships imported into the country, along with 2 Mi-17 transport helicopters. Sandline chartered an Antonov 124 cargo plane to fly the choppers to Darwin, where they would stage before being transported to PNG. During this time, however, news of the plot went public, which led to protests and mutiny from within Papua New Guinea. As a result, the contract was disbanded, and the Russian helicopters sat on the tarmac in the tropical heat of an Australian military base for the next 20 years. Kitty's Dam. Training areas can be spooky places, and many have their fair share of myths and legends. One such example can be found at High Range Training Area near Townsville. This training area was in previous generations farming land prior to being bought by the government decades ago, and evidence of this remains in a number of small homesteads, windmills, and dams that are scattered throughout the area. Perhaps most notorious is the small dam located near the dilapidated Dotswood homestead. Labelled as Kitty's Dam on military maps, legend has it that Kitty was a small child who strayed from the homestead unattended before tragically drowning in the dam. To this day, diggers training in and around the homestead or dam find it an unsettling place and have reported phenomena such as hearing phantom footsteps in the buildings or the giggling of a small child in the darkness. Kibeo. On the 22nd of April 1995, soldiers from 2 RAR and a Zambian infantry company bared witness to an ethnic cleansing in southwest Rwanda. Troops from the Rwandan Patriotic Army, or RPA, attacked an overcrowded internally displaced persons camp at Kibeo, using machetes, rifles, mortars, and grenades, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 4,000 men, women, and children. The diggers were part of Operation Tamar, a peacekeeping mission in Rwanda following the 1994 genocide, where ethnic tensions between Hutus and Tutsis had led to mass slaughter. Kibeo camp, housing tens of thousands of displaced people, became a proverbial slaughterhouse, as the RPA forced the internally displaced persons to return to their villages through violence. Despite being vastly outnumbered and constrained by rules of engagement, the Australian soldiers provided medical assistance and evacuated the wounded during the massacre. The 4 Australians were awarded the Medal of Gallantry for their actions, and in February 2020, all Australians who served in Rwanda received the Meritorious Unit Citation for their bravery during the deployment. If you've stuck around this long, my compliments to your attention span. If you'd like to see the iceberg image in full detail, I'll be posting it to the subscriber blog and social media. Until the next video, thank you for the gift of your time.